Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to Today's state opening of Parliament was, of course, the final stage of the new Parliament underway following the general elections. The opening of New Zealand's 54th Parliament marks the start of the new 3-year parliamentary term, and it's the first time the 123 members of Parliament will meet to debate. So, very shortly, the Guard of Honour will start to gather on the precinct, the Parliamentary forecourt. The Guard of Honour represents all three services: the Army, the Navy and the Air Force. New Zealand has one of the longest running stable democracies in the world, and the opening of a new Parliament is one of the few times when the Crown and the House of Representatives come together as a Parliament in ceremonial display. Now, today is all about the pomp and ceremony, but today's proceedings come at the end of several other formal steps. After an agreement on forming a government was reached, the new ministerial executive, including the Prime Minister, was sworn in at Government House. Just over a week ago was when Christopher Luxon was sworn in. It's a bit of an overcast day here in Wellington this morning, but luckily the rain has stayed away, so the inspection on the forecourt will be able to go ahead when the Guard of Honour forms and moves out. Now, this is the second stage of the opening of Parliament. The first stage was carried out yesterday. That was the Commission opening of Parliament. And that's when the Governor-General sends 3 commissioners, in this case members of the Judiciary, to the House to declare Parliament open on her behalf. At yesterday's Commission opening, each Member of Parliament was sworn in, or almost all of them were sworn in, and Jerry Brownlee was elected Speaker. Now, of course, the elected MPs have been MPs since the official election results were returned, but they're not fully members of the House of Representatives until they swear fealty to the Sovereign. Until then, until members are sworn in, they can't speak or vote in the chamber. So everyone swears an oath on a holy book of their choice or gives an affirmation. That's a promise without recourse to a higher power. And MPs can swear in either Māori or English. Now, the Speaker is not just a ceremonial role, it is indeed the person who presides over debates and is responsible for maintaining order in the whole House. And the Speaker, rather than the Executive, when the Executive wants to send a message to the Sovereign, it's the Speaker who will convey it. So this is quite a historic role. And that idea that the Speaker had to take a message to the Sovereign is behind the rather token gesture of dragging the Speaker to the throne. So we saw that yesterday when several MPs linked arms with Jerry Brownlee and very gently dragged him to take up his new role. That dragging, of course, is because sometimes in the past, being the bearer of bad news was a very unenviable occupation. So we're still waiting on the Guard of Honour to form up on the forecourt of Parliament, ready for the arrival of the Governor-General, who is due to be leaving Government House in about 10 minutes. So today, the state opening of Parliament marks the day on which Parliament resumes its business. Before the House meets, the Governor-General will first give the speech from the throne. That important part of ceremonies is when she will set out the government's legislative policy and plans for the next 3 years. Now, for the last hour, dignitaries have been arriving, including the Dean and members of the Diplomatic Corps. They've been taken through to the Legislative Council chamber, where Her Excellency the Governor-General will be giving that speech from the throne. The Diplomatic Corps is currently led by the Mexican ambassador. The Mayor of Wellington, Tory Whanau, has also arrived. And so have members of the judiciary. So a short while ago, they processed into Parliament grounds across from the area of courts, just across the road outside Parliament. Now, the Supreme Court judges are wearing ceremonial robes that were designed for the state opening of Parliament in 2017. They reflect New Zealand traditions and history, and so don't have the robes and bell-bottom wigs that can be seen with judges in the UK of a similar status. The robes were designed by a Wellington artist, and the brief she was given was to adapt the traditional black gowns worn by barristers and judges to reflect our common law heritage. And she did that by incorporating elements which position the court in New Zealand and draw on our own heritage and traditions. And we're still waiting for the Guard of Honour to gather and to move onto the forecourt. So they'll be gathering in front of the steps of Parliament House, a very impressive steep set of steps up to the first floor. So Parliament actually moved to Wellington in 1865 and originally into wooden buildings. But the current marble-fronted building was built after a competition for designs for a new design in 1911 by Prime Minister Joseph Ward. The government architect John Campbell won that competition. And the new Parliament House is brick faced with marble and granite. And now we're just hearing the Guard of Honour emerge onto the forecourt to begin to take up their position ahead of the Governor-General's arrival when she will speak the Guard of Honour. Guard, representing all three services, are now taking up position in front of the steps. And while the Guard of Honour awaits the arrival of the Governor-General, who should reasonably shortly be leaving Government House, a fanfare party is also taking up position in a small balcony on the exterior of Parliament House above the steps. Along with the Guard of Honour, a group representing Mana Whenua, Te Atiawa Taranaki Whānui, is also gathered on the forecourt, as there will be a traditional challenge when their excellencies arrive. One thing that's changed on the forecourt since the previous state opening of Parliament is the installation of more cultural elements on the exterior of Parliament. It was recognised that there was no representation of Māori from the outside of Parliament. And so only in July a ceremony was held to unveil Te Kāhui Māori on the forecourt. And the Governor-General and her husband will walk between tupō, or two tall carved posts that are now flanking Parliament steps. as part of the installation, a carved lintel was also put in place around the main entrance to the beehive. Now today's ceremony is beautifully organised and executed, but it wasn't like that in the past when Parliament was first formed. At times it was difficult to plan because to get all the members of Parliament actually to Parliament could sometimes prove to be quite a challenge, let alone getting the Governor-General to also be there on time, so delays were frequent. It was reported that one year in the past, the band failed to turn up to play the national anthem. And at one time, the Governor-General had to walk after the horses jibbed and disappeared. So, challenges of the past. Now, among those who have also taken up their position, awaiting the arrival of their Excellencies, is the New Zealand Herald of Arms, Philip O'Shea, and the Usher of the Black Rod, Sandra McKee. The New Zealand Herald of Arms, extraordinary to the Queen, coordinates the ceremonial side of the state opening of Parliament. The position is appointed by the Queen, and Philip O'Shea ranks among Her Majesty's Officers of Arms and is a member of the Royal and Governor-General's households. Mr. O'Shea was appointed to this role in 1978, so he's overseen more than 20 state openings of Parliament. So at the moment, the Herald and Black Rod are now moving closer to the entrance of the Parliamentary precinct, ready to greet the Governor-General. The Usher of the Black Rod serves as the Governor-General's messenger for ceremonial communications with the House. And yesterday, it was Black Rod who led the Royal Commissioners into the House at the Commission opening of Parliament. When the Governor-General does arrive, they'll be greeted by mana whenua, particularly the Principal Advisor Māori, the Tumu Whakarei Kura Moriahu, other members in the mana whenua party. Well, that will be followed by the traditional challenge. That challenge, or rako tapu, is an ancient warrior tradition, and it's intended to test the intention of the visiting party. The warrior lays down the taki, or a small branch, a sacred symbol of peace, on the ground in front of the Governor-General. And on behalf of the Governor-General, cultural advisors will move forward to pick up that symbol of peace and acknowledge the warrior by lifting that taki to eye level, indicating that the intention of the Governor's General visit is peaceful. Now, while there is a ceremonial welcoming happening on the forecourt in a short time, there is also activity inside in the debating chamber. In a little while, the bells will sound inside to call MPs to the chamber. No, those bells are usually used to call members to question time and other sittings of the House and for votes. Now, including a pōwhiri has been included in the opening ceremony since 1984, when the Labour government at the time recognised that Māori formalities alongside the traditional military reception needed to be reflected. And the Governor-General's just arriving. So this will be the first state opening of Parliament for the Governor-General, Dame Cindy Kiro. The last time Parliament was opened, Dame Patsy Reddy was holding the position of Governor-General. There's a small gathering people in the Parliamentary precinct. There are some school children who are lined up to watch this special event, the state opening of Parliament. And Her Excellency is moving forward for the traditional greeting. The warrior is moving forward as part of the challenge.
Yep.
And the warrior is approaching using his taiaha, the wooden fighting staff.
Wanga tatara moe aramoera. Te kāwana ti anara ki wai te tīkei rari te parerau o ahu mai arangi. O tiwa ti anara parerau o urupe riro rārongo rāko rongo. Ko rongo ki te waka tipua, ko rongo ki te waka tāwita, ko rongo ki te mai aroha. E rongo whakaeri he kuma. Uruturu a witi waka maua kia tīna. Tīna! Uie! Taiki e!
Laying aside all personal interests, we acknowledge the King and pray for guidance in our deliberations, that we may conduct the affairs of this House with wisdom, justice, mercy and humility for the welfare and peace of New Zealand. Amen. Members, I have to report that accompanied by members, I waited upon Her Excellency the Governor-General at Government House yesterday when I addressed Her Excellency as follows. Following Your Excellency's request, the House of Representatives has elected me as Speaker, and I now present myself for Your Excellency's confirmation. Her Excellency replied as follows. Mr. Speaker, it is with much pleasure that I confirm the choice by the House of Representatives of you as its Speaker. I congratulate you on your election to this distinguished office, marking as it does the appreciation of the House of Representatives of your impartial abilities. I then replied to Her Excellency as follows. Thank you, Your Excellency, for confirmation of the choice made by the House of Representatives of me to be its Speaker. I now, on behalf of the House, lay claim to all its privileges and especially to freedom of speech and debate, to free access to Your Excellency whenever occasion may require it, and to the most favourable construction being put on all its proceedings. Your Excellency replied as follows. Mr. Speaker, I confirm all the rights and privileges of the House of Representatives which have ever been granted. I assure you that the House of Representatives shall always have ready access to me and that I will at all times place the most favourable construction upon its proceedings. I've received the following authorisation from Her Excellency the Governor-General to administer the oath or affirmation prescribed by law to be taken by members of the House. In accordance with Section 11 of the Constitution Act 1986, I, the Right Honourable Dame Cindy Caro, Governor-General of New Zealand, authorise you, the Right Honourable Gerard Anthony Brownlee, Speaker of the House of Representatives, to administer to members of Parliament the oath or affirmation of allegiance to His Majesty the King required to be taken or made by every such member before that member shall be permitted to sit or vote in the House of Representatives. I wish to advise the House that I have received a letter from the Honourable Andrew Little resigning his seat in the House with effect at 6 p.m. on the 5th of December 2023. I understand that the Honourable Phil Twyford is present and wishes to make an affirmation. Would he please come forward to the chair on my right?
I, Philip Stoner Twyford, solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, his heirs and successors, according to law.
Congratulations. I call on the senior Maori member to give a mihi. Tāna Potaka.
Karanga ki arangi nui kia papatuanuku ihi wehi mana wana. Tūroa Royal mā ngā rirunga kua karapene pene atu ki tua o Pohutukawa ko te pō te kaihari i te rā, ko te mate te kaihari i te oranga. Ahu mairangi tangi te keo whātaitai te whanganui a tara me oku ake o Ngāti Tuaranga tira me te ati awa. Whakatau mai he honore, he kororia ki te atua, he maungārongo ki te whenua e whakaaro pai ki ngā tāngata katoa. Kingi te are te tuatoru kingi tūheitia, me ngā punua kini ngā kua o kuini katoa o Aotearoa. Rua hine rua nuku rangatakapu rangatahi mā, e o ati ana au ki te nuku me te whenua. Kei te tiriti o Waitangi, kei te Magna Carta, kei te Bill of Rights, kei te whakapuakitanga whānui o te mana tangata, ngā pau tuhinga me ngā pau tikanga o tō tātou whenua, e kite ana ngā ture kāwanatanga o te wānei. Hei popo, ko waika mōhio, ko waika hua. He oi, kia rarau atu tātou ki ngōna whakatakotoranga. Kei taku manu tātaki a Adrian, kei taku manu tātaki a Jerry. Me te kāhui rere I hanga I tō kohanga. Nau tō tātou kōrero I whakamaunu atu I te ata nei, kia ita mautonu e te rangatire te māngai o te whare Jerry. E rere ana ngā reo omihi me ngā tākoha ki ngā manu takoto, ngā manu tautoko ara, ngā āpiha hāpai o te whare miere o te whare pāremata nei, me ona whare katoa. E ai ki te kōrero, mā mua ka kite a muri, mā muri ka ora a mua. Kei te Premier Kiritopa, e whakakahurangi nei I tō tātou kāwanatanga, e rere nei hei manu topa ki ēnei hāpuri ki tō tātou ohanga. Āna, ko kōrero te motu, ko koe a runga I te whare nei, hei manukura o tō tātou motu a New Tireni. Kia ora e te Premier hau. Ko tō tātou manu noho mātārai a winitana hei tuarua mo te hawhe tuatahi. E mihi ana ki tō pakanga, ki te pai o te kōrero mo te Pātia New Zealand First, kei taku kāhu korako tarara matua Shane, me te amokura Casey, kautaka tō hoki mai anō. Ka tai ko tō tātou manu kaiwa rewi mo te hawhe tuarua. Ko whai rawa remuera me tāmaki I te pō haria mai te kahupū korokoro I o rākei I remuera kia tai ki tō taunga māwhero I te rā. Heoi, kia tūpato ko ngā paua kai o te apōpō e te o ngā whakaaro hei kaipea. Kei te pāti kākāriki, kia hemi mārama koutou, mo tō koutou rāngai nui a haere. Tēnā koutou me te pīkau nei I ngā kaupapa taiao aha tū rā. Tamartha me Julianne I kā napa mai I te pane o te motu. Tēnā mauria mai te kā riki uri, kia tupu mato te taiao. Kei te rōpu kākā kura, me tō koutou kākā tarahai a Kiritopa, tō koutou kākā para kiwai a Carmel, tēnā koutou e kāwai nei i ngā ringa rehe o te kāwanatanga tawhito. Kei ōku ngutu kākā a Matua Willie, Matua Rino Kelvin, Penny, Willow Jean, kia ata rere kata mai, kia hau e tūturi nei ki o mahi. Me te mea nei e harau i te tame heihei, engari he tangata peke peka kē. Kei ōku ake o te pāti Amakura Māori, e taku toro ānui a Debbie me te korimako a Rāwiri, koutou ko te toko whātapu, taku rauhuia a Tash. Hei huruhuru mō kōrua. E kore rawa e wareware ngā take e kawe nei koutou ki te muro o te kōrero. Tautau a tātou i te ahi ki kore e mātau engari mā te ahi hoki o tātou waiwai e wera. Ki ngā memo o te pāti kahurangi, e rere mai i ngā pai maunga o tawhiti puru o tata puru. Kawea mai te rau o te rere ngātahi, kia kotahi atu tātou ki te arahi te kāwanatanga, ki te kōkiri i ngā take nunui roroa o te wā. Koinei te wā mo te rere a kārearea, haunga ko te rere a pīpipi nei a korukoru nei. Ma te ururoa mō New Tireni, mō Aotearoa New Zealand, mō ngā tāngata katoa, e taku manu hauara Shane, manu Pūtea Nicola, manu Pihopa a Kiritopa, kia manawa wera e hoa mā, kia ngiri te kōrero. Kei ngā manu pōkai me ngā tamarika katoa, tāne mahuta hine ahu one, kia rarau atu tātou ki ngā kianga o tōku koraua, a rangipō, rangi tākuku me te kingi. He ao anō a pōpō, he ao te a. Utanga nui tātou ki te manu tāwhi o rangi, tēnā koutou tātou katoa. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e, tātou e. Kei taku māngai e mihi ana.
The House will now wait for the summons to attend upon Her Excellency the Governor-General. I presume you speak among yourselves. I'm not sure what happens here.
The Governor-General has entered Parliament led by Black Rod, and her flag has been unfurled, which is procedure when the Governor-General is actually inside Parliament. During the inspection of the Guard of Honour, there was a 21-gun salute fired at Point Jerningham. And the procession is moving through the Grand Hall and into the Legislative Council chamber, which was in regular use from 1865 when Parliament first relocated to Auckland, until 1951 when the Legislative Council was abolished. And after Karanga, the women's welcome, at the top of the steps of Parliament, there are now kapa haka inside the Grand Hall. Trumpeters have moved inside the Legislative Council chamber, ready to greet their excellencies with a fanfare.
Please be seated, everyone. Black Rod, please summon the House of Representatives.
Black Rod is retreating from in front of the Governor-General, as is tradition, backwards, and will now go to the debating chamber as the Governor-General never enters the debating chamber of the House. This follows the Westminster tradition that the Sovereign or their representative never enters the House of Commons as a symbol of the independence of representatives elected by voters. Black Rod is moving through to summon with her ceremonial black rod over her shoulder. However, this will be swapped over for something more robust for when she actually knocks on the door of the debating chamber to summon MPs.
Remove the bar.
Mr. Speaker, Her Excellency the Governor-General commands the immediate attendance of this Honourable House in the Council Chamber.
So MPs have now risen and are following the Sergeant at Arms, who has a mace over his shoulder, out towards the Legislative Council chamber. After the clerks of the House, we have the new Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, the Leader of the Opposition, Chris Hipkins, and other MPs are following in behind.
I'm like, he's working out.
The mace over the shoulder of the Sergeant at Arms was traditionally a heavy club with a metal head and spikes, and was a symbol of the Sergeant at Arms' authority to arrest. Today it symbolises the Speaker's authority and that of the House. It's a replica of the one used in the House of Commons. It's nearly 1.5 meters long and weighs over 8 kilos. Silver gilded with 18-karat gold. And the MPs are now all in the Legislative Council chamber with dignitaries looking on from the gallery above.
Members of the House of Representatives, please be seated. Karanga ki te rangi, karanga ki te whenua, karanga ki ngā pū ngā here, karanga ki ngā maunga kōrero, karanga ki ngā wai e tere nei, e ngā rangatira, e ngā mema parimata, e ngā tāngata katoa o Aotearoa, ka nui ngā mihi mata koa koa ki o koutou katoa. Kia ora. To the chiefs, members of Parliament, and all New Zealanders, hearty greetings to you all. Honourable members and the House of Representatives, it is my privilege to exercise the prerogative of His Majesty the King and to open New Zealand's 54th Parliament. In October's 2023 general election, New Zealanders voted for change. Not just a change of government, but a change of policies and a change of approach. Following constructive negotiations to form a strong and stable government, a coalition between the New Zealand National Party, ACT New Zealand, and New Zealand First Party was agreed, with a commitment to deliver that change. This is the first time since New Zealand's mixed member proportional electoral system came in nearly 30 years ago that there has been a three-way coalition government. It took office on Monday last week when I swore in the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Christopher Luxon, and the Ministry. The government enjoys the confidence of a clear majority of members in the 123-seat House of Representatives. But it is the people outside Parliament who will be the government's priority in decisions made over the next 3 years. The new government is committed to delivering, to getting things done. It wants people to see demonstrable, measurable results that make their lives easier and help them to get ahead. The government will work alongside local government, businesses, community groups and iwi, believing that all of us can achieve more by working together, and that cooperation will enable greater reach into communities, particularly those with high needs to effect change. The government's aim is to improve outcomes for all New Zealanders while leading a unified and confident country. The government will encourage independence and reward hard work while retaining a comprehensive safety net for those in need of support. The new government will show its respect for New Zealanders by spending public money carefully and with a clear purpose. The government has many priorities, and among them are rebuilding the economy to ease the cost of living, delivering tax relief, and increasing prosperity for all New Zealanders. The government will restore law and order and personal responsibility so Kiwis feel safer where they live and work. It will deliver public services so they are more efficient, effective, and responsive to all who need and use them. The government will also strengthen New Zealand's democracy. Its policy program will be extensive and ambitious, reflecting the amount of change necessary to provide hope and opportunity for more New Zealanders, and for this great nation to realise more of its potential. To lift New Zealand's productivity and economic growth, and in order to increase opportunities and prosperity for all New Zealanders, managing a strong economy will be a key focus for the next 3 years. Restoring discipline to government spending will help the government achieve its fiscal plan and ensure that public money is being spent effectively, using rigorous cost-benefit analysis where applicable. The government will reduce core Crown expenditure as a proportion of the overall economy, with savings in government agencies targeted to deliver tax relief for hard-working, low and middle income earners. These savings will be informed by the increase in back office headcounts in each agency since 2017. But ministers will be expected to work with individual chief executives to achieve their respective savings targets. With the official cash rate hitting its highest point since 2008, creating stress and worry for many mortgage holders and businesses, the Reserve Bank Act's dual mandate has patently not worked at containing inflation. The government will amend it within 100 days so monetary policy is quickly returned to having a single focus on price stability. Red tape is adding costs to businesses that get passed on to consumers. A new government department reporting to the Minister for Regulation will be established to assess and improve the quality of new and existing legislation and regulation. A regulatory standards bill will be passed to ensure regulatory decisions are based on principles of good lawmaking and economic efficiency. As part of restoring fiscal discipline, the government has already axed the expensive Lake Onslow pumped hydro scheme, and the government will also stop work on industry transformation plans, the costly income insurance scheme, Auckland's light rail project, and Let's Get Wellington Moving. Overwhelmingly, the public's main concern is the high cost of living. Reducing wasteful spending will contribute to taking pressure off inflation. Tax relief targeted at middle and lower income workers will be of practical help to households. It will meet the government's objectives of encouraging people into employment and people enjoying more take-home pay in return for their effort. The government will provide income tax relief to compensate for the increase in the cost of living, increase working for families' tax credits, introduce the Family Boost tax credit to support young families with the cost of childcare, and widen eligibility for the independent earner tax credit. These changes will see a median wage earner better off by at least $50 a fortnight and more for many with children. Mortgage interest deductibility for rental properties will be restored. To further help with the cost of living, the government will cancel planned fuel tax increases by freezing them for 3 years, while also removing the Auckland Regional Fuel Tax. Funds raised from the emissions trading scheme will be paid back to taxpayers through a climate dividend. They will no longer be used to unnecessarily subsidise the climate initiatives of profitable companies that should be making these investments themselves. The government will rewrite the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act to protect vulnerable consumers without unnecessarily limiting access to credit. A select committee inquiry will be held into banking competition, and the government will explore options to strengthen the powers of the Grocery Commissioner to improve competitiveness in the sector. Honourable members, New Zealanders are wearied and worried by brazen offending, particularly against retailers. All New Zealanders are paying for this offending, but those working in fear are bearing the highest personal cost. The explosion in gang numbers is concerning communities everywhere. The government believes a good education is the best way for young people to have better life opportunities than the mayhem and brutality offered by gangs and criminal offending. To support police and ensure New Zealanders are safer, the government will train no fewer than 500 new frontline police within the first 2 years. The government will introduce legislation to provide police with additional powers to tackle gangs. That legislation will ban gang patches and insignia in public places, give police the power to issue dispersal notices requiring gang members to immediately leave a public area, allow police to issue consorting prohibition notices to stop known gang offenders committing serious offences, give police power to issue firearms prohibition orders, making it illegal for a gang member with serious convictions to enter certain premises where firearms are present, and give police increased search powers for people who are subject to such an order. Too often, sentences do not reflect the gravity of offending, so the Sentencing Act will be amended to ensure appropriate consequences for offenders. This will include making gang membership an aggravating factor in sentencing. The 3 strikes rule for serious repeat criminals will be restored, with a tighter definition of offences that qualify as strikes. To deter young people from a life of crime, the government will create a new young serious offender category and establish young offender military academies to help young offenders turn around their lives. Additionally, over the term of this Parliament, the government will increase the number of trained youth aid officers and will consider a youth justice demerit point system. Funding will be increased for the Department of Corrections to ensure there is sufficient prison capacity, and where appropriate, prison officers will be equipped with body cameras and protective equipment. Firearms legislation will be reviewed, including rewriting the Arms Act 1983 for greater protection of public safety and to simplify regulatory requirements. The firearms registry will be reviewed to see whether it is improving public safety. While spending on public services has increased in recent years and the headcount in government departments has grown, the delivery of public services has, in too many cases, declined. This decline is seen in measures that matter to individuals and to our country. Targets will be set for important measures like wait times in hospitals and waiting times for cancer treatment. These will help focus resources on the government's priorities, which are achieving better results in the things that matter to New Zealanders' daily lives. The pay of public sector chief executives and their deputies will be linked to outcomes to encourage high performance and ensure accountability. Education is essential for opening up young people's life opportunities, but current school achievement rates are worryingly poor. For example, half of Year 10s do not meet the basic literacy and numeracy standards the OECD says are needed to succeed in further learning and in life. This government will not stand by as cohorts of young people see their life horizons shrink because of a lack of schooling. The government will require every primary and intermediate class to be taught an hour of reading, an hour of writing, and an hour of maths every day, because a good grasp of the basics is the essential foundation on which to build further education. To help teachers, the curriculum will be rewritten with clear requirements on what needs to be covered each school year in reading, writing, maths and science. And the curriculum will be focused on academic achievement, not ideology. Student progress will be regularly assessed. Cell phones will be banned in classes. Every child will be taught to read using a structured literacy approach. Partnership schools will be reintroduced and state schools will be allowed to become partnership schools. Further options to increase school choice and expand access to integrated and independent schools will be explored. In tertiary education, Te Pukenga will be disestablished with control over polytechnics restored to the regions they serve. The first year fees-free policy for tertiary education will be replaced with a final year fees-free policy, but not before 2025. The health system and the health workforce have been under enormous pressure and more support is required for the front line. To encourage more graduate nurses and midwives to stay in New Zealand, the government will establish a system to pay their student loan repayments up to $4,500 a year for 5 years, in exchange for them agreeing to work here for at least 5 years. To further boost the health workforce, the government will increase the number of doctors, psychiatrists, and clinical psychologists being trained. The government will undertake a cost-benefit analysis on the proposed third medical school based at Waikato University. To support the health workforce and hospital emergency departments, security will be increased. Cancer patients have better survival rates in Australia than in New Zealand. To help narrow that gap and to improve management of breast, ovarian, bowel and prostate cancer, The government will invest $280 million over 4 years to fund 13 cancer treatments recommended by the New Zealand Cancer Control Agency. Free breast cancer screening will be extended up to 74 years of age. Pharmac will be required to take the voice of patients into account in making decisions, and its funding model will be reformed. Approvals for new medicines will be made easier by requiring MedSafe to approve within 30 days new pharmaceuticals approved by at least 2 overseas regulatory agencies recognised by New Zealand. To support mothers and babies, a new entitlement will be introduced to enable every mother of a new baby to have 3 days inpatient postnatal care. The government will fund the Gumboot Friday I Am Hope charity with $6 million a year, ensure Plunkett is adequately funded to do its job properly, allow appropriately qualified pharmacists to prescribe certain treatments, and permit the sale of cold medication containing pseudoephedrine. The Māori Health Authority will be disestablished. There will be no co-governments of public services, and emphasis will shift to the front line rather than the back office. Services will be delivered on need using a range of effective providers, including iwi and community groups who have the best reach into the communities they serve. Honourable members, having 11% or 1 in 9 New Zealanders of working age on a main benefit means too many people are dependent on the effort of their fellow citizens instead of being self-supporting. The government will encourage those who are able to work to do so. The government will uphold New Zealanders' rights and expect individuals to demonstrate that they understand their responsibilities. The welfare system will be focused on helping get job seekers who are assessed as being able to work into jobs. There will be sanctions for those who refuse to do their bit. 90-day trials for all businesses will be brought back to encourage employers to give workers a go. The Fair Pay Agreement legislation will be repealed because employers and their teams are best able to negotiate for their own circumstances. Turning to superannuation, the age of entitlement for New Zealand superannuation will remain at 65. The universal winter energy payment will be maintained. The Building Act and Resource Consent System will be amended to make it easier to build granny flats or other small structures up to 60 square metres. Successive governments have struggled to make housing more affordable for more New Zealanders, with house prices and rents rising particularly quickly over the last 6 years. The government will require councils in major towns and cities to zone for 30 years of housing demand, because getting more houses built is essential to having a more affordable housing market. The Natural and Built Environment and Spatial Planning Acts will be repealed and replaced with genuine reform that will make it easier to build. The medium density residential standards rules will become optional for councils, with councils required to ratify any use of the measures, including in existing zones. Turning to social housing, the performance of kāinga ora is a concern. There will be a review of its finances, procurement, development and asset management practices. The lives of some neighbours of some kāinga ora properties are being made miserable because of inadequate action against antisocial behaviour by some kāinga ora tenants. Under the new government, there will be appropriate consequences for tenants who engage in repeated antisocial behaviour. Honourable members, New Zealand has a significant infrastructure deficit and needs to improve the way it funds, procures and maintains infrastructure. The government will set up a national infrastructure agency. It will coordinate government funding, connect domestic and offshore investors with New Zealand infrastructure projects, and improve funding, procurement and delivery. As part of amending the Resource Management Act 1991, the government will make it easier to consent new infrastructure, including for renewable energy, building houses and enhancing the primary sector, including fish and aquaculture, forestry, pastoral, horticulture and mining. There will be a fast-track, one-stop shop established for the consenting and permitting process for regional and national projects of significance. The government will deliver marine farming permits of longer duration to provide investment certainty and remove regulations that impede the productivity and potential of the seafood sector. The government will partner with local government to create long-term city and regional deals so there is an agreed, visible pipeline of priority projects underway across the country. Public-private partnerships, tolls and other funding mechanisms will be considered to speed infrastructure delivery. As promised, the government will repeal the Three Waters legislation and restore council ownership and control with stronger central government oversight and strict rules for water quality and ongoing investment. The government will invest in better transport infrastructure, including progressing 13 new roads of national significance, with a focus on unlocking land for new housing developments and easing congestion in Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington, Hamilton and Tauranga. The government commits to a 4-lane highway alternative for the Brynderwyns in Northland, and it will investigate the use of private finance to accelerate construction. The government will establish a regional infrastructure fund with $1.2 billion in capital funding over the parliamentary term. Major public transport upgrades will be delivered to reduce congestion in Auckland and provide people with more options for moving around the city. There will also be upgrades to transport infrastructure in Ashburton, Queenstown, Otago and Southland. As mentioned earlier, across government, red tape will be cut in order to get things moving and to remove costs that have been imposed for little or no gain. Cutting red tape will unleash the investment in renewable energy that is needed for the country to meet its emissions reduction targets, aid primary sector production, and improve the productivity of small businesses. The government will reduce the regulatory burden on farmers, who are spending an increasing amount of their time on paperwork. The implementation of new significant natural areas will cease, and existing significant natural areas will be looked at as part of the reform of the Resource Management Act. The National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management 2020 will be replaced to ensure a local approach, allowing district councils more flexibility in managing environmental limits. The government will lift the effective ban on gene editing and genetic modification and encourage the use of these technologies. This will mean the advantages of technological progress, for example, in reducing the production of methane by farm animals, will be available in New Zealand, just as it already is in many other countries. The ban on live animal exports will be reversed, while ensuring the highest standards of animal welfare. By December 31 this year, the government will end the Clean Car Discount Scheme, and with it, the so-called ute tax, which has been particularly unfair on the rural sector and tradespeople. The government is committed to New Zealand meeting its greenhouse gas emissions targets. To encourage more renewable energy production, the government will fast-track consents. Consents will no longer be required for upgrading transmission lines and infrastructure. The government will undertake a cost-benefit analysis on investing in a nationwide electric vehicle charging network. The provision of more charging stations will encourage more people into electric vehicles, which will help reduce New Zealand's greenhouse gas emissions from transport. To further reduce emissions, by 2030, the government will implement a fair and sustainable pricing system for on-farm agricultural emissions. As part of the emissions trading scheme, 100% recognition of on-farm sequestration will be introduced. The government will limit the conversion of productive farmland to forestry for carbon farming purposes. The government believes in equal citizenship with all citizens sharing the same rights and obligations. The government will work to improve outcomes for all New Zealanders with public services delivered to people according to their need and not advance policies that seek to ascribe different rights and responsibilities based on race or ancestry. A treaty principles bill will be introduced and supported to a select committee for the public to have their say. Waitangi tribunal legislation will be amended to refocus the scope, purpose, and nature of the tribunal's inquiries back to the original intent of that legislation. The government will also review legislation, except where it relates to full and final treaty settlements, that includes reference to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. Reference to the principles will be replaced with words that explain what Parliament intends in the context of that legislation, or will be removed. Finally, the government should not and will not focus its efforts only within New Zealand borders. The world is increasingly complex and contested. There are risks to be managed, but also opportunities for New Zealand to make the most of, to ensure our country makes more of its potential. This requires New Zealand to have an active foreign defence and trade policy agenda that enhances our security, that signals that New Zealand is open for business and outwardly engaged, that makes us participant in major global and regional developments, not a spectator, and that sees us working tirelessly to grow trade and prosperity. The coalition government is committed to getting offshore and raising our profile on the world stage. The Prime Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs and other ministers will strengthen relationships with key partners, advance New Zealand's interests and promote our businesses offshore. The government will be bold in defending New Zealand's interests and vigilant in the protection of the values of democracy, freedom and security. Honourable members, perhaps New Zealand's strong sporting traditions help New Zealanders to be generous in defeat and humble in victory. Whatever the reasons, few countries in the world change governments as smoothly as New Zealand does. It is something of which New Zealand, as a nation, can be justifiably proud. It has put the government in a good position to start on its 100-day plan of action. The 100-day plan is a forerunner of 3 years of action because New Zealanders voted for change and the government will be tireless in executing it. It has started work and will hold itself accountable for delivering results that make a positive difference. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
And at the conclusion of the speech from the throne, Dame Sendikiro has handed the speech to the Speaker, Jerry Brownlee. It was given to her by the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, but now goes to the Speaker, who will take it back to the chamber. And their Excellencies are now moving to leave Parliament. They led out of Parliament by Black Rod, back through the Grand Hall and accompanied by the Kapahaka group. And leaving with the official group are the heads of the military. And the judiciary, who processed over from the courts, are also in the party about to leave.
Members, after Her Excellency the Governor-General made a speech to the House and the Legislative Council chamber today, she handed me the text of the speech, and I now lay this on the table of the House. There are no petitions. There are papers to be presented.
Government responses to the report of the Petitions Committee on the report of Arthur Yeo on behalf of the New Zealand Equestrian Advocacy Network and the report of the Regulations Review Committee on its inquiry into COVID-19 secondary legislation. Reports in relation to selected non-departmental appropriations for the year ended 30th of June 2023 for the Minister of Social Development, vote Social Development, and the Minister of Police and Tourism, vote Business, Science and Innovation. 2021-22 Annual Report for the Takeovers Panel. 2022-23 Annual Reports for the Arts Council of New Zealand, Ag Research, Airways Corporation of New Zealand, Animal Control Products, Assure Quality, Auckland Light Rail, Broadcasting Standards Authority, City Rail Link, Civil Aviation Authority, Classification Office, Crown Infrastructure Partners, Crown Irrigation Investments, Department of Corrections, Department of Inland Revenue, Department of Internal Affairs, Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, Education Payroll, Education Review Office, Electricity Authority, Electricity Corporation of New Zealand, Electoral Commission, Financial Markets Authority, Gambling Commission, Genesis Energy, GNS Science, Heritage New Zealand, Human Rights Audio Group, Landcorp Farms, Law Commission, Licensing Authority of Second-Hand Dealers and Pawnbrokers, Local Government Commission, Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission, Maritime New Zealand, Meridian Energy, Met Service, Ministry for the Environment, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Ministry of Social Development, Ministry of Transport, National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research, New Zealand Defence Force, New Zealand Forest Research Institute, New Zealand Growth Partners, New Zealand Lotteries Commission, New Zealand Police, New Zealand Post, New Zealand Qualifications Authority, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, New Zealand Transport Agency, Ngāremu VC and 28th Māori Battalion Memorial Scholarship Fund Board, New Zealand On Air, Pharmaceutical Management Agency, Predator Free 2050, Privacy Commissioner, Public Service Commission, Public Trust Office, Quotable Value, Radio New Zealand, Rau Paenga, Real Estate Authority, Research and Education Advanced Network New Zealand, Serious Fraud Office, Southern Response, Statistics New Zealand, Takeovers Panel, Te Mangai Pāho, Te Taura Whiri I Te Reo Māori, Television New Zealand, Tertiary Education Commission, Transport Accident Investigation Commission, Tupu Tonu Ngāpui Investment Fund, 2023-27 Statement of Intent for ACC, 2023-24 Statement of Performance Expectations for ACC, Maritime New Zealand and the Mental Health and Wellbeing Commission. Ministry for the Environment and Stats New Zealand Environmental Reporting Series 2023, our fresh water and our atmosphere and climate.
I present the 2022-23 Annual Report of the Office of the Clerk, the House of Representatives and the Parliamentary Service, the 22-23 Annual Report and the 2023-28 Strategy Intentions, the Office of the Ombudsman, and the 2022-23 Annual Report and the 2023-27 Strategic Intentions of the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment. Those papers are published under the authority of the House. There are no select committee reports, no bills to be introduced today. We come now to business of the House.
I move that Barbara Joan Kuriga be appointed Deputy Speaker. Mr Speaker, can I take this opportunity at my first contribution to the 54th Parliament to congratulate you, sir, on your election to
take your time.
August office. That's perhaps a comment you may not be repeating during the rest of this Parliament, but thank you, sir. It gives me great pleasure to nominate and move that Barbara Kuriga be appointed as a Deputy Speaker. I well recall when Ms Kuriga was an inexperienced member of the Parliament as she entered Parliament the same year as I did in 2014, but she's now been here for 9 years, entering her fourth term as the Member of Parliament for Taranaki King Country. She served on a variety of select committees over the time, including the Economic Development, Science and Innovation Committee, Environment, Finance and Expenditure, Health, as well as the Standing Orders and Officers of Parliament Committee. And there has been times in the last Parliament, the 53rd Parliament, where Ms Kuriga acted as a temporary Assistant Speaker and has discharged that duty very well indeed. I think she enjoys the respect of the entire House for the gentle and diligent way she chairs meetings, both in committees but also the House. She brings a real gravitas to the role as Deputy Speaker. And can I say, sir, in closing and nominating Ms Kuriga, the symmetry of today is not lost on me, because it was 9 years ago that Ms Kuriga and I moved the address and reply debate, which two national backbenchers will move this afternoon. And it's nice to see Ms Kuriga ascend to the august office of Deputy Speaker.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Mr Speaker, I move that Maureen Helena Pugh be appointed Assistant Speaker. Mr Speaker, Maureen Pugh is the MP for West Coast Tasman. She was in the invidious position at least twice of being elected on election night, only to be not unelected, but not quite have that result confirmed after the special votes. And so she entered Parliament the first time on the 21st of December 2015, and that happened again after a subsequent election. She's a Member of Parliament who comes to the House with experience on the Westland District Council, first elected in 1998, before she became the first woman mayor elected as the mayor on the West Coast. She has served in a variety of committees over the last few years in the Parliament, and for the last 3 years she has been the junior whip for the National Party. She's someone who I think also enjoys the confidence of the House to do an excellent job in the very important role as Assistant Speaker, and so it gives me great pleasure to move her nomination.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it.
Mr Speaker, I move that Gregory Eamon O'Connor be appointed Assistant Speaker. Mr Speaker, it's wonderful to see a fellow member of the Parliamentary cricket team ascend to the august office of Assistant Speaker. But of course, Mr O'Connor has been acting as Deputy Speaker in the 53rd Parliament, and of course I think all members of the House would agree he did an excellent job in discharging that important job. Someone who brought his experience in the police and as the Police Association with a firm but fair handling of the House, and I'm sure he will continue that diligence as the Assistant Speaker of the 54th Parliament.
The question is that the motion is agreed to. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Congratulations to those members.
I move Government Notice of Motion number 4 in my name relating to the reinstatement of business. Mr Speaker, members, if they pick up the order paper, will notice Government Notice of Motion number 4 is a very long motion, and I'm not intending to read it out for the House. Basically what we're doing here is reinstating every item of business from the last Parliament onto the new Parliament. Now, it may be that well, some of it's okay, some of it isn't, Mr Leader of the Opposition. But I think there has been debates in the past, including the last Parliament, about the appropriate course of action for a new Parliament dealing with the business of the last Parliament, because sort of by definition it reflects the business of a Parliament that has expired, and the people have spoken in the interim and given a new sense of direction to the Parliament. Frankly, I think it was regrettable that the onset of the last Parliament made some changes to the business in this interregnum period. What we're proposing to do, Mr Speaker, is reinstate every item of business from the last Parliament so that ministers and members, actually, for that matter, can have a good opportunity to look at what they may wish to proceed with and items that they may wish to discharge. I think that's the appropriate constitutional thing to do. I think it's right in principle and right in a convention sense that is what happens. So every item of business is being reinstated, and ministers and members in due course, as the weeks go by, will be considering whether or not bills and items of business get shunted further up the priority list, or whether or not things make their way down the order paper to the tail end, where things may not be advancing so quickly or may in fact be discharged. But I think the constitutional thing to do is to reinstate the items of business, and that's what this motion does.
Thank you. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, the ayes have it. According to a determination of the Business Committee, I call upon the Leader of the House to move a motion regarding entities deemed to be public organisations.
I move that Air New Zealand Limited, Genesis Energy Limited, Meridian Energy Limited, Mercury New Zealand Limited, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, the Judicial Conduct Commissioner, Maori Television Service, Te Pukenga, New Zealand Institute of Skills and Technology, and Te Aka Whai Ora, the Maori Health Authority, be public organisations for the purposes of the standing orders.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The House is suspended until 2 p.m. today for the address in reply.